Hello everyone. Today I would like to talk about the Unix file system and absolute and relative passes, and then I want to continue with some other basic Unix commands. So, the Unix file system is like a tree. So under Windows we have partitions and a letter is assigned to a partition. For instance, C drive, D, E, F, and so on. But under Unix and under Linux, we have a tree. The tree has a root. It is the root folder. It doesn't have a parent. And a folder can have arbitrary number of subdirectories. And then every subdirectory has exactly one parent. And if you connect a partition, for instance, a partition or a USB stick to your machine, then typically it will appear under media or the mnt directory. So here a subdirectory will appear and it will contain the content of your USB stick, for instance. So if you attach a partition, then it will be part of this root structure. Under the root there are several directories. For instance, we have bin, boot, and so on. So I say a few words about some of them. So bin contains the Unix commands. We have already seen, for instance, the pwd command, and with the command which we can check where pwd is located, and it is in /bin. What about ls? It's also there. chmod also there. So the most well-known Unix commands are typically in this /bin directory. Boot contains the kernel and the files that are necessary for booting the operating system. etc contains configuration files. Under home you can find your home directory. So my username is Jabba and Jabba is located under /home. I mentioned media and mnt. Root is the home folder of the administrator. tmp is interesting, /tmp. It contains temporary files, and every user has the permission to write in this directory. For instance, I want to create an empty file AA. It's there, so I have permission to do that. And the important thing is that when you reboot your machine, the content of /tmp will be deleted, removed. So don't store any important thing here. It's really just for temporary files and directories. And under var, for instance, you can find the log files. Here log, and here you can find several log files. I suggest that you visit Wikipedia, type the term Unix file system, but I will copy the link to the bottom of this video and read this article. And here you will find a description of the most important directories. So read them, get acquainted with the Unix file system. It's important if you want to use Linux. Okay, now let's talk about absolute and relative passes. here we have, for instance, this file test.txt, and I enter this subdir. This is an empty directory, and I want to print the content of test.txt. Then there are two options. One of them is that I provide the absolute path of this file, and the absolute path starts with the root. So I specify the location of a file or a directory from the root. So it will be here /home/java/lab, and here test.txt. So this is an absolute path. How to recognize an absolute path? That the first character is /, that is, it starts with the root. But always using the absolute path can be tiresome. So we can also use relative passes. So this test.txt is in the parent directory, and in the parent it's called test.txt, and it will be a relative path. A relative path means that I specify the location of an entry starting from the current directory. So it means from the current directory, let's step back to the parent, and in the parent we can find this file. Good. Now let's see the cat command. We have already used cat, and with cat we can see the content of a file. And cat is actually the abbreviation of concatenation, because you can provide several files as parameters. So for instance 1, 2, 3, and it will print the content of each file one after the other. So here actually the content of the 3 files are concatenated. That's why it is called cat. You can also start cat without any parameters, and then it reads from the standard input, that is from the keyboard. If I type something here and press enter, the same line will appear. Why? Because now cat reads from the standard input, and it will send the output to the standard output, which is the screen. So it reads from the standard input until I press the enter. I press the enter, and whatever I typed will be sent to the screen. So it works line by line. You can quit with Ctrl D. And here there is an interesting usage. You can create a file with cat. So actually you don't need a text editor to create a file. Cat, and we want to redirect the output to a file. For instance, out.txt. Again, we didn't specify any input, so cat is reading from the keyboard. I type something, and if you press Ctrl D, it will mean you end the input. So you can quit from cat with Ctrl D. And now whatever you typed, it was redirected to a file. There it is, out.txt. Let's see its content. There it is. So if you need to create a file but you are not allowed to use any text editor, you can use this trick. diff. Diff will show the size of every partition, and here the most important partition is the /. with the partition which is mounted on slash. So this is your main partition. The system is installed here, and this is the size of the partition, how many bytes are used, how many bytes are free. Usage is 69%, but the values are indicated as bytes, so it's quite unreadable. How much is it? I don't want to count it. Fortunately, there is a switch -age, which means print the result in a human readable way. And now it's easy to read. The size of the partition is almost 8 GB, 5 GB are used, 2.4 GB are free on my main partition. So use diff always with age. It will print a nicely readable output. Diff. Here I prepared some files. With diff, so I made a file, original, I made a copy, and I modified something in the copy. As you can see, the size of the two files are not the same. So with diff, we can find out what is the difference between two files. So here I added a new line to copy.txt, and here there is a line which starts with the rest of this article, and I modified it, the rest of this post. So I modified the word. Unfortunately, the output of diff is not very readable, and I make a copy, an exact copy, and now if the two files are the same, then there is no output. And this is typical of Unix commands, that if there is no problem, it doesn't print anything to the screen. If there is a problem, if the two files are different, then there is an output. So this output of diff is not very readable. So I want to show you two graphical programs that can also compare the content of two files. The first is kdiff3. Let's install it. kdiff3, and yeah, it will install it. And the second one is called meld, which is also a very nice file content comparator. Meld. No, let's use kdiff3. Compare the original and the copy. So here on the left side, A is the original file. Here on the right side, this is the copy. And we can see the differences. So here it is indicated that this is a new line, and here article was modified to post. So you can see very easily what the difference is between the two files. Now let's try meld. Maybe the way that meld shows the difference, maybe it's even better than kdiff3. So actually I prefer meld. So this is a new line, and here article was modified to post. So if you need to compare the content of two text files, I suggest using meld. Well, thank you for your attention. If you liked this video, then please press on the like button, and in the next video we will continue with the basic Unix commands.